We'll get started here in just a minute. We're going to let some time go by to allow people to come in, and then we'll get started.
Recording in progress.
I'll give it one more minute for those folks who are a little late this morning, but we're almost there. Okay, I think we'll get started. That way Eric will have a full amount of time to present. Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, actually, wherever you might be in the world. My name is Chuck Lennox with the Global Alliance for Heritage Interpretation. And I want to welcome you to one of our webinars in our series, Global Excellence in Heritage Interpretation, today hosted by the Association for Heritage Interpretation in Great Britain. Today's webinar is a circular economy for exhibits. And as the webinar goes on, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat or the Q&A, and I will monitor those and have Eric answer them at the end of his presentation. Let me pass the screen over to Barker Langham with the Association for Heritage Interpretation to introduce himself and the topic for today. Thanks for coming.
Great. Thank you very much, Chuck. Yeah, and as I say, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. It's great to be here talking about interpretation on this global platform. I'm Barker Langham. I'm founder of a cultural practice that specializes in interpretation called Barker Langham, but also, most importantly, I'm a trustee at the Association of Heritage Interpretation. And I'm going to be really talking today about that role and about some exciting projects. And I suppose just to say, as a trustee of AHI, it's a real honor to speak with you all here today, especially now. It's a milestone year for us because this year we're celebrating 50 years of AHI. And for an organization that's run by passionate volunteers, I think to thrive for half a century is pretty remarkable. But AHI is much more than just an organization. It's a vibrant community, a family of professionals dedicated to sharing knowledge, ideas, and best practice to enhance cultural and natural history. A little bit about AHI for those that might not be familiar. We're the UK's leading professional network for interpreters, and we work across, landscapes, historic properties, museums, visitor centres, and beyond. Our goal is simple yet very powerful: to distill the essence of human and natural history into experiences that matter, experiences that linger, that resonate, that inspire. Interpretation to us is really a bridge between the past and present, between ideas, places, and people, and between silence and meaning. Yeah. And this is our 50th year. It's not just a time to look back on our triumphs, but it's also a time to look forward, to reimagine what the next half a century of interpretation might be. And that's why we launched a project this year called Interpretation Gold. And this is a bold project that kind of reaches back into our past, but also forges a new future ahead. Just gonna, go on to the next slide. So what are we trying to achieve with Interpretation Gold? Well, there's three things. Number one, we're trying to unlock our archives. We're going to digitize 50 years of AHI journals, making the wisdom of the past both shareable and searchable so it can help shape future practice. We're also going to be amplifying our voices. We're going to record the insights, the the memories, the dreams of our members, our fellows, even new audiences, weaving a kind of living tapestry of expertise for future generations. And we're going to reimagine engagement. We're going to engage with existing and new audiences. We're going to develop some new best practice guides, have webinars like this, for, both national and local ones. And all of this will be showcasing fresh and daring approaches to interpretation. But we didn't stop there. We wanted to make a tangible impact in our own small way on the future of the planet itself. And one of the key parts of Interpretation Gold that I'm going to speak a bit about today is about rethinking how we create, use, and reuse exhibition materials. What if museum and heritage sites could share surplus resources with those who need them most? This isn't just about reducing waste, it's about fostering this circular economy for interpretation. It's an economy that will promote sustainability, equity, and collaboration across our sector. And so today I'll be telling details of this very initiative that we're trying to do, as well as I'll be showcasing case studies from AHI members and beyond. And these case studies will be about sustainably driven projects. All of these stories will be about ingenuity, resilience, and hope. So there's going to be three parts to my talk today. The first part, I'm going to introduce our new exchange scheme. And this is a blueprint for sustainable resource sharing across the whole interpretation world. The second part of my talk today, I'm going to talk about the afterlife of exhibitions, how we can extend the power and reach of exhibitions long after their opening night. And finally, I'm going to talk about this exciting idea of a regenerative museum or heritage place, showcasing how cultural projects are not just about survival and sustainability, but how they can actively help heal, nurture, rejuvenate the communities and environments they serve. So let's start off on this journey, and perhaps I think together with we've got a huge collection of interpreters here, we can redefine how interpretation works, not just for today, but perhaps for the next 50 years. So I'm going to start off with the AHI exchange scheme. So first of all, the big question, what is the exchange scheme? Picture this, a quiet storeroom at the back of a museum where disassembled showcases, display cases, old panels, forgotten props sit gathering dust. Once they probably dazzled in the glow of an opening night of an exhibition, but now they wait silent, unused. What if we could breathe new life into these? What if instead of landfill or storage, they found new homes, new ideas, new stories? Well, that is exactly the vision of the AHI Interpretation Gold Exchange Scheme. It's an online platform where AHI members and those involved in interpretation and exhibition development can offer surplus materials, display cases, furniture, sets, signage, even entire exhibits to those who need them most. It fosters a circular economy, helping to reduce inequalities in access for materials, particularly for those who need them most, and particularly for those who are on very limited budgets. The exchange scheme aims to create this kind of regenerative loop where resources are continually passed on, transformed, reimagined. By encouraging collaboration and reducing waste, it will help reduce operational costs for all those involved. It will keep valuable assets in use, serving the cultural community rather than being discarded. So I'm going to start with a personal reflection. I'm going to take you back 30 years. This is me, sort of 30 years ago. I was a young curator at a museum called the Galleries of Justice, now the National Justice Museum. And that's in Nottingham, here in the UK. And every month, I would eagerly leaf through the Museums Association journal. Why was I doing that? One of the key reasons was they had a listing page. And in that listings page, I could locate spare display infrastructure. And this would give me the means to create an exhibition I otherwise couldn't have imagined. Now, that same hunger, that same sort of need for kind of access, for opportunity, for possibility is alive in our sector today. And that's why the exchange scheme really matters. I think by sharing, we'll strengthen our sector. By collaborating together, we'll really enrich our practice. And by recycling, we will contribute to a more sustainable future. So where did the idea come from? Well, it came from a really interesting place. It didn't come from a top-down mandate. It actually emerged organically through conversations at AHI conferences, sparked by voices and across our wide and diverse membership. That includes both national museums and volunteer-run local history groups. Whether you work at the British Museum or a small rural society, AHI very much is your home. And we at AHI really know the sector's challenges because of this diverse membership. The challenges we have at the moment: tight budgets, the climate emergency, the need to do more with less. And the exchange scheme is a grassroots initiative, and it's a response designed to help members, cut costs, minimize waste, amplify their climate action. While many other recycling and exchange programs do exist, none serve the museum and heritage sector at a national scale here in the UK. And as a collaborative organisation, AHI will build connections with local schemes to create a stronger, more effective network. So how will this work? Here you can see the kind of regenerative loop that we hope to kind of foster with this scheme. And just imagine a world where sort of museum and heritage institutions seamlessly share resources, where they can reduce waste and maximise potential. A world where infrastructure, tools and materials find new homes instead of gathering dust. This is the vision of the scheme, and it's really about transforming the way we think about resourcefulness in heritage. At its heart of the scheme is a digital platform. And this will be a space where members can easily list and exchange items. The digital platform is a living, evolving kind of digital ecosystem, and it's designed for really intuitive interaction. Thoughtful categorization will make finding what you want really straightforward, and we'll have trained administrators to oversee quality, ensuring that every item listed is in useful and in good condition. It will be a hub for engagement. And what do we mean by this? It's much more than just a marketplace. I think that museums and heritage professionals, we thrive on dialogue and shared expertise. And this is what it's going to be, much more than, so it's a place to have conversations. We'll have discussion boards and forums to allow members to share best practices. Expert advisory services will provide guidance on newly acquired items, and through digital outreach and social media, we'll ensure that no opportunity for collaboration is ever missed. And logistics support will be woven into the scheme. We'll have these secure transaction options to ensure exchanges are efficient and safe, and we're going to be forging links with heritage-friendly, sustainable transport providers, ensuring flexibility in how items are delivered and collected. It's also really important for any scheme to be impact-driven, and we're going to create a sort of comprehensive reporting system, an interactive map to look at resource flow, a dashboard that looks at sustainability impact reporting. This all allows us to measure and celebrate the positive change that we can create together. And so, for an example, a recent exhibition. This is an exhibition called Sun and Fire, which my company, Barker Langham, worked on. It's called Sun and Fire, Life and Death at the Dawn of History at Shrewsbury Museum and Art Gallery, and this in the UK. And this exhibition explored Shropshire's deep past, the Bronze and Iron Ages. But more than an exhibition, it was also an experiment, a kind of challenge to the status quo of what an exhibition can be. Recycled materials in this exhibition weren't just reused, they were in effect reimagined, woven beautifully into the exhibition's design, repurposed cases like the one you can see here and reworked scenography. They weren't just sort of cost-saving measures. They were really a statement, a promise, a glimpse at a more regenerative future. Now imagine if all of this thinking became the norm. Imagine if national and regional museums actively supported local museums and community groups by sharing infrastructure, tools and expertise. The ripple effects could be truly remarkable. The response to the AHI scheme has been really, really inspiring. And you can see some of the quotes here from some of the audience consultation we've done. And if you're quick, you can look on the QR code and add your own thoughts to this. But with all of this momentum, we recently, well, it's towards the end of last year, successfully secured National Lottery Heritage Fund support. And for those of you not in the UK, the National Lottery is one of the big supporters of heritage projects. So we've secured some money to both digitize the journals and build this platform, but also the money was there. But also the money was there for us to do some extensive consultation. And as I say, you can see some of the feedback from the consultation here. And with a successful grant, we're at this critical stage. We've actually done a lot of groundwork. We've completed our consultation, and over the next few months, we're going to be building this platform to bring this vision to life. The impact of this initiative, we think, can be truly transformative. It will position the museum and heritage sector as a leader in regenerative practice, showing how cultural work, the work of interpretation, can drive environmental change. It also will foster this kind of dynamic network where institutions, museums and heritage institutions, people like AHI and other people involved in culture and heritage can support each other, amplifying our collective impact. It also importantly embeds sustainability into everyday practice, making environmental responsibility not just an ambition, but a standard. Alongside the platform that we're building, we're also going to develop a best practice guide of sustainability and exhibitions. Now, AHI, if you don't know already, and here's a plug, we produce an amazing array of best practice guides on all types of heritage interpretation. And this new guide on sustainability will equip professionals everywhere with the tools to confidently weave green thinking into their work. We're already looking into the horizon and what next, never stand still. And we're currently in discussions to explore the production of a certification scheme for sustainable exhibition design, in effect creating a set of standards where designers, museums, heritage, or anyone creating exhibitions can fulfill a set of standards for sustainability in exhibition design. So the AHI scheme and this future certification scheme, I think, will not only help shape the future of interpretation, but they will ensure that museum and heritage professionals are at the forefront of creating a greener, more connected future. So part two is the afterlife of exhibitions. Now, the afterlife of exhibition materials is pretty central to the interpretation goal scheme I just talked about, but it's a subject I'd like to talk about here, but from a very different perspective. Exhibitions are always seen as fleeting, or I'd say often seen as fleeting, and they're designed, displayed, dismantled with little thought about what happens once the exhibition closes. But if we shift our perspective and consider the potential afterlives of exhibitions, I think we can unlock a realm of possibility. What if beyond the immediate experience of an exhibition, we designed interpretive media and exhibition components with the same care, intention and artistry we devote to, say, artworks? How can we ensure the legacy endures beyond that temporary display? Well, this part of my talk is going to explore this hidden sustainability of exhibitions, how objects, materials and interpretation can transcend their original function to become artifacts, to become artworks, to become cultural markers and catalysts for ongoing audience engagement. I'm going to start with the Blaschka glass models, and these are probably one of the most remarkable examples of an interpretive device that evolved into a cherished museum artwork. And it's the work of Leopold and Rudolf Blaschka, who were two 19th century artisans who meticulously crafted crafted glass models of marine life. Now, these beautiful, detailed models allowed museums to exhibit delicate marine organisms, such as jellyfish, in ways that traditional methods couldn't. If you imagine before the advent of digital displays and advanced preservation techniques, how can you render a jellyfish in 3D? Well, this is what these glass models actually could. So they were vital educational tools. They brought scientific specimens vividly to life in 3 dimensions. But over time, these works took on a dual significance. Not only were they scientific objects or interpretive exhibits, the Blaschka glass models are now viewed as fine art treasured museum artifacts. They are accessioned in museum collections all over the world. And I think the legacy of this demonstrates that when interpretive materials, when the media we create as interpreters are crafted with care, with skill, with artistry, they can transcend their initial purpose. Rather than kind of fade into obscurity, they can transform into lasting symbols of human creativity. And as I said, today museums, like for instance, the Natural History Museum in London, which exhibits this bits of interpretive media in their masterpiece exhibition as soon as you sort of walk through the museum. It shows the importance that in how interpretive media can sort of transform from exhibit to a feature in a permanent collection. And I think these pieces themselves, with their resonance, ensure that their cultural and kind of educational significance remains relevant for future generations. This is a piece of interpretive media that will forever stay within permanent exhibitions around the world. So it's really important food for thought. But of course, exhibitions don't always leave behind explicit artifacts. Sometimes their afterlife can be expressed through fragments, physical remnants that may not have been intentionally preserved, but they can acquire a new meaning as they find new life in different contexts. These unintended relics, whether saved through deliberate conservation or a more informal repurposing, can serve as powerful cultural markers. So another example for this one is the Brutalist Playground, which was an amazing piece by the collective Assemble, and it's an immersive installation that was exhibited here in the UK that recreated post-Second World War concrete play spaces using reconstituted foam. After the exhibition's closure, elements weren't just discarded, but they were repurposed into new settings. For instance, seating at the Royal Institute of British Architects. These fragments subtly altered the architectural environments they were placed in, reminding us that exhibition materials don't have to end their journey after an event. They can be integrated into new spaces, continuing to evoke meaning and memory. Similarly, Halstead's Roman Fort installation, designed by Morag Misecroft, highlights the enduring impact of exhibition design way beyond the initial experience. Very importantly, this project was recognised as an AHI award-winning project for Best Temporary Event. We have an awards every 2 years, and we have some awards coming up in October at our conference this year. But the reason for us having an awards is really to underline our commitment to innovation and excellence across the sector. But let me tell you a little bit about this particular exhibit. You can see it's very bold, it's contemporary, it uses vibrant colour schemes and large-scale typography and a striking design to reimagine an ancient fort. This work, entitled "The Future Belongs to What Was as Much as What Is," was created for HW 1900. That's the 1900th anniversary of Hadrian's Wall, at Halstead's Roman Fort in Northumberland. The project engaged local schools, young people with learning difficulties, refugee groups, all of whom were invited to co-create elements of it. In fact, even the project's title that I just mentioned came from one of the participants. And the installation itself was incredibly interactive. It invited visitors to climb in, to sit on it, to walk through it. It offered perspectives of the landscape and perspectives to it. The design incorporated Roman symbolism and colours and clearly blended kind of historical reference with modern resonance. And it drew new audiences, especially young audiences, and really boosted engagement at the site. Feedback was incredibly positive. It brought Roman culture to life in new and inclusive ways, and is, as you probably can see, a really fresh approach to archaeological interpretation. But most importantly, when the exhibition concluded, many of its components, including hand-painted placards or sculptural elements, were distributed to local communities, to schools, to public spaces. These now serve as touch points, continuing the dialogue between past and present and fostering a kind of sense of belonging and shared history in the region. And one more example of the afterlife of exhibitions, and this is one that my company also works on, Barker Langham, because not all exhibitions are designed with any form of permanence in mind. But I think that even if you're designing a kind of ephemeral exhibition, it can leave a lasting impact. This exhibition is called Blink, The End is in Sight. It was, I'm pleased to say, another AHI award-winning exhibition, and it was developed for the charity Sight Savers to tackle the devastating issue of trachoma, which is a bacterial infection that causes irreversible blindness if left untreated. The exhibition was held at London's Oxo Gallery, and it used innovative methods to immerse visitors in the emotional weight of this disease. The concept was quite striking. Renowned photographers, including people like Nick Knight and the late David Goldblatt, contributed images representing the last thing they would want to see before losing their sight. Each photograph in the exhibition was then equipped with this tracking technology that activated a mechanical actuator. So whenever a viewer blinked at it while gazing at it, it gradually, over the course of the exhibition, would destroy a part of the photo, pixel by pixel, by the very eyesight, by the very blinking of the visitor. And this helped symbolize the irreversible loss of light caused by of sight that was caused by trachoma. By using the audience's own act of blinking to damage the images, the exhibition created this kind of intimate, visceral connection between the visitors and the subject matter. It not only really pushed the boundaries of what an exhibition could be, but I think allowed visitors to become active participants in the process. But the transformation did not stop there. The damaged photographs, you can see parts of them here, now unique artworks shaped by kind of audience interaction were sold after the exhibition to raise awareness and additional funds for Sight Savers. And this shift from kind of interpretive media to gallery object to transform artworks became a crucial part of the exhibition's legacy, proving that I think even transitory experiences can create enduring value, raise awareness, and support ongoing causes. So the examples I've just talked about, the Blashka models, the Brutalist Playground, Halstead's Roman Fort, and Blink, I think they remind us that exhibitions are not moments in time. They're part of ongoing cultural and material and social processes. I think when we talk about sustainability and the circular economy in exhibitions, we're not just talking about recycling materials or reducing waste. We're also talking about designing for legacy. Thinking carefully about how interpretive elements, how design, how audience engagement can ripple forward and transform objects, spaces, and people's sense of connection. The AHI, through its award schemes, I think plays a really crucial role in recognising and celebrating projects that kind of exemplify this ethos. Projects that push the boundaries of interpretation, embrace innovation, and kind of create a lasting impact. But I think we at AHI, we don't only just champion best practice in interpretation, but also quite interestingly, the idea that great interpretation is never truly finished. It kind of lives on in the memories, materials, communities, and conversations that I think continue long after exhibition doors have closed. The final part of this talk is going to take you kind of beyond sustainability, because sustainability has always been a kind of guiding principle in the museum and heritage world. But today, I think many of you, and I really feel we're starting to think beyond it. It's no longer simply enough to sustain exhibitions, collections, or practices. I think we're all stepping in, or we must step into the more ambitious and urgent space of regeneration, actively repairing, rejuvenating, and empowering the communities, cultures, and ecosystems that museum and heritage sites shape. This is about kind of moving from protecting at what exists to sort of almost cultivating what could flourish. A shining example of the regenerative spirit comes from Orkney in Scotland, Stromness Museum, and it's a project they did in partnership with the Orkney Natural History Society. This project, called Changes in a Lifetime, transformed the museum into a living hub for climate action. Through a series of climate cafes, local people came together to share and talk about the environmental changes that they had witnessed in their lifetimes. And this was done not only through discussion, but through creative projects and hands-on reflection. For instance, the participants stamped their words and their feelings onto metal jigsaw pieces that were assembled into a striking artwork at the heart of the exhibition. But what makes this kind of project really remarkable, and why it won another AHI award, this time for excellence in interpretation, is what happened next. The project did not stop when the exhibition closed. It adapted and expanded. They worked with artists, they continued conversations with the communities, they continued activities. For instance, the museum became a hub, a central hub in the whole of Orkney for shoreline biodiversity surveys. The museum developed enduring partnerships with people like the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds to work on projects to do with kind of climate education. This really was regeneration in action. It was creative, inclusive, collaborative, and an enduring commitment to ensure that the museum wasn't just telling a story about climate change, but it was actively part of that change. So from a small Scottish island, let's sort of jump onto a global stage. And it's another example of regenerative practice. And this is from a project that I was personally involved in called Testaments in the Age of Humans. And in early 2021, we entered a competition to reimagine a museum for climate action. And rather than focusing on a single climate-focused institution, we proposed the radical idea that every museum across the globe can tell the story of humanity's impact on the planet. We envisage a network of cultural institutions, reframing their collections and their exhibitions to highlight the ongoing environmental crisis and humanity's role in it. The vision took place through a collaborative film project where we interviewed museum professionals, cultural experts, community members from all over the world. In fact, we touched on, I think, 6 continents, places like District 6 Museum in Cape Town, the National Museum of Tuvalu, the National Museum of Qatar, the European House of History. Through these conversations, we sought to document and amplify stories of environmental change. And we also spotlighted the amazing work that museums and heritage sites are doing to protect the planet. The culmination of the project was a presentation at COP26, where we shared our findings and called for global action. I think what struck me most about this project was this idea of the power of collective action and how this power can rejuvenate and regenerate ideas. Museums and heritage sites, the places where we work, are uniquely positioned to foster dialogue and inspire change. By coming together on a global scale, we can transform how we think about the environment, and we can actively participate in kind of reshaping our future. The project demonstrated that transformation isn't a one-time kind of event, but it's this ongoing process. And the heritage industry can really lead the way in catalyzing change and encouraging new narratives for future generations. So, in conclusion, and this is, the last bit, that the things I want to leave you with. I think the stories that I've shared here, from the Blaschke glass models to Stromness Museum's climate cafes, from the Brutalist playground to the exchange scheme I started on, I think they all reveal this fundamental truth that exhibitions are never just temporary. With thoughtful design, the elements we create, whether objects, ideas, or experiences, can ripple far beyond their immediate context. They can spark unexpected conversations, inspire creativity, and leave sort of dark, deep, lasting impressions. I think when we design with legacy in mind, exhibitions come more than just moments in time. They transform into catalysts for change, into cherished artifacts, into living conversations between the past, present, and future. They regenerate. And today, we must embrace this regenerative practice. Work that actively repairs, revitalizes, and empowers the communities, cultures, and ecosystems we touch. Because I think ultimately the true measure of our impact is not how well we sustain what we inherited, but how boldly we imagine, grow, and renew the world we leave for others. Thank you for your time. Yeah, happy to answer any questions that may have come up or that might exist now. Sorry, that was my last conclusion there.
Thank you, Eric. That was a great presentation. How exciting. What an exciting time to see what happens as this progresses. Helen from Interpret Europe mentions, is the report available anywhere that you mentioned?
Is that the report on the exchange scheme? I mean, we do have some information that we have been releasing across our social media channels, and we're currently writing up our audience consultation report. So I'm sure via the AHO we can share that with you. So yes, once that's sort of finalized. So absolutely.
Eric, thank you so much for this inspiring presentation. Actually, what I wanted to ask is the report on the third point that you presented. So this is good practices of exhibitions that deal with climate change.
No, we haven't written that yet. We are, so that's one that we want to write that towards the end of the scheme. So yeah, we have the funding for it, which is great. It will be written and live this year, because this is when we have the funding. So that will come out later this year. And with so many incredible interpreters, this is a great audience to speak to. So if anyone has kind of experience or ideas or has been working in this field, if they can contact AHI or me, we can certainly, it would be amazing to consult with you to create this as well, because we've got good ideas, but collectively with all of you lot, we'll have amazing ideas, and to put all of that into one report and one sort of study would be great. Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much. We've also had something similar in our plans on our new project, but we haven't yet got to this activity. So we'll be in touch when we start working on that, and we can probably support each other. Thanks so much.
Great.
Eric Farah has two questions. One would be, would you encourage designers and interpreters to create with reuse in mind?
Yes, I would. But I think as I presented, reuse can take many forms. And I think that creating at a basic level, creating infrastructure that, in a temporary exhibition that can be reused for other exhibitions by other people in other is number one primarily. But also I wanted to talk about which the other parts that if reuse can also be about creating a piece of interpretive media that has a legacy, that becomes an artwork in itself, and also that perhaps reuse you can create furniture, so it doesn't have to be an exhibition, it can be reused in a different way. So I would encourage thinking in really creatively about reuse. And I think in one way, having done it myself, it makes you better designers and interpreters, because it's another challenge that pushes you into a different realm, and it can actually make you more creative. So I think it's something not that we should be doing, we have to be doing. And that's why we wanted to introduce the certification scheme, which exists very well known, we know, for architecture and such. And there are a few things out there, but actually for funders to say, if you're not reusing or you're not thinking about these principles of sustainability, you may not get the funding. I think it's really important, but it's important that the certification scheme looks at reuse in a very holistic way. Yeah.
And the second question they had, I think you probably just answered it, but I'll ask it. Does reuse compromise creative originality and uniqueness of exhibitions, or can it actually spark more unique approaches?
I'd like to say it can spark more unique approaches. I think, to me, sometimes true creativity comes thinking like this, but having restrictions and barriers, because that's it kind of, I think that conversation is a really interesting one to have within yourself and within teams. So I don't see an issue with thinking of it in that way. Product design, you've probably seen product design, pick whether it's something like a water bottle that's now in cans or it's made out of slightly different materials. We as interpreters and designers need to be thinking like that, but way beyond that, because not only and when in many cases we're not. The reason we need to be thinking about that is we're storytellers, and the planet is who we're telling stories about, whether it's people or the natural landscapes. It's up to us to be leaders in this. It's not up to us to be responsive. So I want us to be producing stuff that product designers follow. That's where we need to be. That's the plane that we need to be. So I think that if we aren't like that, forging ahead, doing those kind of things, really creative, then other designers, clothes design product will follow the lead of what we're doing. But we represent. This is what the Testaments project I did was. Interpreters very much are telling the story of the earth. We're telling the testament of the earth at this time. And that's our role, to tell its story and protect it and make sure that the next generations have a story to tell. So I think I would, for everyone on this, I think it's a must for us. Yeah.
Right. So in a practical sense, how would, and I know that it hasn't gotten fully started yet, but just in terms of your vision for it, if I was, say, represented a museum and I wanted to put on an exhibit, but I wanted to follow these concepts, would I sign an agreement? Would it be kind of a certification process? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there's two things here. For the exchange scheme, and then I'll talk about the certification scheme, anyone can sign up. For members of AHI, it'll probably be free. For non-members, there may be an amount, and we'll build this platform, etc., where you can just freely exchange. The certification scheme is still in its infancy, but we think it would originate, because we're a volunteer-run, organisation, and we need to do. I think envisage we will get great funding for it, but at first it will probably be self-certification, but there will be some sort of peer review, and it may then morph into something that might be more I would like to think that the big funders of major projects, the government, the lottery, the Arts Council here in the UK, and people like, you know, the big natural heritage or the National Trust and RSP, people like that, we will get them all on board. So any projects that go in through their band, or they're funded or their support, has to follow this scheme. So that's how we'll do it. So then any designer has to follow that, but probably self-certification followed by something more formal once we've got some traction. Yeah.
The value I see in that too is the fact that big or small, you know, if I'm a small museum, down the road, I would see the ability to share with something much bigger who's already tried something out, and I could use it as a method that I didn't have to spend a lot of time on, or kind of walk into the dark room and start to feel things. How do I get started?
Absolutely. I mean, this actually came at our conference. The whole idea of the exchange scheme came from that. The conference is great because you do have a volunteer museum and you do have people from the British Museum there, national, big, and we're all as one, and we're all talking about big issues. And one of them did say, I've got loads of showcases. I mean, this is the conversation that did happen in a store, and they said, well, I've been looking to exhibit some material in my local library for 10 years, but I've got no showcases to put it in. And it just sort of seems ridiculous. You know, there are these local schemes, but if we can put community organizations with national museums and create this kind of virtuous circle, it's a win-win. And you know, more stuff gets out there. There's you know, it limits costs. It's a positive thing. Yeah.
Well, it was fun to hear you describe the Stromness climate cafes, because they were a presenter on this series last year. And I had been working with a client at the University of Utah, and they had a major grant from the US National Science Foundation to basically what's the best methods to interpret climate change. And I put the two together. It was this big university museum with a smaller community museum, and it was really neat to see the same topic, same kind of ideas, but being able to share resources, you know, ideas, and what might work, and what experience others have.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds great. And, you know, it's obviously, you know, feasibility, a UK scheme, but if there's a way at some point to make it, you know, maybe it's not the scheme, but maybe the model works in other areas, because if it's a successful model, there's no reason why North America doesn't have it, and every other every other region in effect starts to have this, because it's a very simple model really. And then I think with designers creating more sustainable, more adaptable exhibits, and I mean every exhibit from a panel to, you know, a model that can be used. I love the fact, and I charge my design team here to create exhibits that live on because they're so beautiful, they're so amazing, whether it's a film that then gets accessioned as part of the museum, or you know, a model or a piece of, you know, interpretive media that is so beautiful it then becomes part of the collection. That should be a starting point for all interpreters and designers to, you know, how can I make my exhibit an artifact? Because that's where we started, and we all lost our way at some point by all this media and stuff. And I think we need to go back to that. That's the bit when we go back to, you know, that time. And you know, we've got those skills and passions. So I'm really interested in pushing that today. Yeah.
It also forces us to walk our talk, so to speak.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Completely.
Well, let me see if there's any other questions that people might have for Eric. And there's no more in the chat. At this point, I'll say thank you so much for your presentation. This was very inspiring and put a lot of ideas in people's, at least in my head, maybe in others' head, as to what the future might be. And I just want to mention to everyone that this is a series. So for the future webinars, feel free to contact your member group or on the Global Alliance website, which is www.gahi.online. And usually there's a week or two in advance, there will be the registration process for you to get the link for these series. This is an ongoing process. The Global Alliance is a group of 8 groups around the world, and we are wanting to share resources and also help make connections with each other. And as I always say at the ending of these presentations, that interpretation is a seed, not a tree. So we've been planting more seeds today, and I hope you'll be planting more in your community. Thanks everybody for joining us, and have a good rest of your day or evening.
Great.
And thank you, Eric.
Cheers. Thanks, Chuck. Bye.